There's something deeply fucked up with you.
At least something.
How can I put this? Christmas ornaments, drywall, and Jerry Epstein. Name 3 things that don't hang themselves.
Tell Trump that Epstein's calling. I feel you broke him out of jail. Tell Trump Ghislaine is calling. She said that she'll be out soon too. Tell Trump that Gaza's calling. They know he helped the genocide. Tell Trump the bombs are falling. Tell Trump the world is dying. Tell Trump the sky is falling. Tell Trump that God is calling.
Epstein is a Democrat hoax.
Oh no, I said. Why? Because
He killed himself. Do you think, let's play out the logical conclusion of this. Do you think that myself, Bongino, and others would participate in hiding information about Epstein's grotesque activities?
For years, the curiosity around Epstein seemed like it might be more interesting than the real truth. Like, yeah, he was a file, but that doesn't automatically mean he was running a secret file cabal of baby-killing billionaire freaks. But then his emails came out, and the truth is literally more insane than what people actually imagined in the first place.
Will you ask Attorney General Pam Bondi to release more documents to finally put this controversy to bed?
Whatever's credible, she can release it. If a document is credible, if a document's there that is credible, she can release. I think it's good. But it's just a subject. He's dead. He's gone.
How Maxwell's move from federal prison to a prison camp has come with some extraordinary perks.
What we've just learned is that she has been receiving basically club fed or Trump hotel style treatment, concierge style treatment. She's got special arrangements where she's working with the warden to send materials to her defense team. It's an extraordinary situation.
Add to that one more perk for the convicted sex offender, puppy time. According to the whistleblower, an inmate who trains puppies to become service dogs was instructed to provide one to Maxwell for a time so she could play with the puppy. Joining me now, an attorney representing 11 of Epstein's victims, Eric Fudali. Thank you for being with us. Wondering if you've spoken to your clients about this and what their reaction is to these reports of this special treatment for Ghislaine Maxwell, including puppy time.
Yeah, I mean, their reaction is it's profoundly devastating. Ghislaine Maxwell does not deserve puppy time. Ghislaine Maxwell does not deserve anything but to be rotting behind bars. She is a convicted child sex trafficker. She was convicted of tricking 14-year-old girls into having sex and becoming sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. She belongs in a maximum security prison where child sex traffickers belong. She does not deserve any special treatment, and it's just profoundly devastating, disappointing, and re-victimizing for the victims to have to hear what sort of treatment she's getting.
She also is reportedly seeking a commutation from President Trump. Do you think he might reduce her sentence for sex trafficking?
Unfortunately, I can't rule it out. I mean, and that's how absurd this whole situation is.
Tonight, newly released videos showing Jeffrey Epstein's only convicted co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, appearing before lawmakers from a Texas prison, refusing to answer questions unless President Trump grants her clemency first.
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
The Supreme Court is back in session.
Yeah.
They rejected today an appeal by Ghislaine Maxwell to overturn her conviction. That means her only chance at getting out of prison is a pardon from you. Is that something you're open to?
Who are we talking about?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
I haven't heard the name in so long. I can say this, that I'd have to take a look at it. I would have to take a look.
President Trump, who was friends with Epstein for more than 2 decades, has not ruled out a pardon for Maxwell.
If Ghislaine Maxwell is pardoned or has her sentence commuted by Donald Trump, the only possible explanation will be that Donald Trump is pro-sex trafficking, and anyone who supports him after he does that is pro-sex trafficking. There is simply no other explanation.
I have a lot of people who have asked me for pardons. I call him Puff Daddy has asked me for a pardon.
But she was convicted of child sex trafficking.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take a look at it. I have to ask DOJ.
On September 22nd, 2016, Jeffrey Epstein receives an email with redacted images attached, sent just minutes apart. One is labeled pussy, one is labeled girls, and one is labeled age 11. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's not an anonymous tip from someone who's requesting Bitcoin to prove the truth. These are real emails that Epstein was getting and sending, exposed by the US Department of Justice. But before 2025, the case against Jeffrey Epstein, at least in the public eye, was built primarily on suspicion. The idea that Jeffrey Epstein was part of something much bigger than himself and that other people were involved, it came from 2 facts. Number 1, Jeffrey Epstein was rich, a pedophile, and had a ton of powerful friends. And number 2, he was found dead in a jail cell under suspicious circumstances. That alone is something where you don't need to be crazy to hear it and think something's wrong. In fact, you might be crazy if you hear that and don't think something was wrong. And so as a result, in the last couple of years, even though the historical, political, legal narrative was that Epstein worked alone and didn't leave any footprints behind, he still became this symbol of everything wrong with our society. Epstein came to represent corruption, specifically the idea that people at the top of society play by a completely different set of rules than the rest of us. After the release of 3 million documents, we know that the government holds 2.5 million more that they aren't going to show us. Every time they release anything, we're only left holding more questions than we had before. We now know who Jeffrey Epstein spent the last 10 years of his life with, who embraced him after his crimes were known. But that isn't the end of the story, it's just the beginning. Because ultimately, just Epstein having rich and powerful friends, that's not really proof of anything. But right now, there are more emails depicting crimes horrific beyond our imagination. Emails that reveal things about our world that are beyond what we thought was possible. There are records available right now that show that the truth about Epstein is far darker than what we had originally even feared.
Also buried in the files are many more deeply disturbing emails.
As you know, it is not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. And so as horrible as it's not a crime to email with Mr. Epstein.
But Republican Congressman Thomas Massey, who has been instrumental in the release of the files, has no regrets about the worldwide exposure of those who appear in them.
There's some collateral damage to people's reputations, and frankly, I'm not sorry about it. If you went to the island where women were raped, to have a vacation with a known sex offender, and now you're embarrassed, I'm sorry.
There's lots of embarrassing stuff, but is there actually criminal stuff in these files, in your opinion?
Oh, absolutely. The question is, are the allegations true or not? And the way you determine that is you have an investigation and you have a trial. And that's how you get to the truth in this country. And all of those steps have been truncated because these are rich and powerful men.
Instant message to instant nightmare.
We're going to provide instant action to save the children.
Young girls and women lured into sex trafficking, sometimes through social media. Now Florida is fighting back.
This has got to stop.
Today, Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi announced a new statewide campaign.
Were there any underage girls at that party or at any party that Trump attended with Jeffrey Epstein?
This is so ridiculous. Florida ranks 3rd nationally in calls for help for human trafficking, where young women and children are enslaved and abused. I knew we needed all hands on deck. Businesses and hospitals to spot it, our great law enforcement to stop it, and tougher penalties to punish it. We're taking on Medicaid fraud, pill mills, gangs, and more, and I'll fight to put human trafficking monsters where they belong, behind bars.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
Pam Bondi publicly stated that she was reviewing these files in February, just 17 days after her confirmation as Attorney General. That's quite a lot of video footage to go through, but it would appear that she did this as a few days ago she was supposed to speak at a summit against human trafficking, where unfortunately this announcement was made.
I do have a note from the Attorney General, from Attorney General Pam Bondi, that I wanted to share. I'm sorry to miss all of my CPAC friends today. Unfortunately, I am recovering from a recently torn cornea, which is preventing me from being with you.
Now, I don't know what caused this reported eye damage, but I feel that if I spent the last 6 months reviewing bathroom camera footage from Epstein's house, where Trump was frequently a guest, I think I would damage my eyes too.
Pam Bondi saw this photo, one of many from the Epstein Files, yet declared there was no evidence of crimes. She now says the DOJ has released all the files, even though we have seen only 50% of the files. And by the way, that's outdated. Apparently, it's only 2% of the files we've seen. She is a pedophile protector covering up for these despicable perpetrators.
Based on the horrified expression on Kash Patel's face, it would appear that he's been going through the footage too. The horrors that man must have seen.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me, I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No.
A heated showdown on Capitol Hill Wednesday as Attorney General Pam Bondi fielded nonstop questions about the government's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation.
It was a hearing that was combative right from the very start.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch. Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
A hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi that got so heated, one Democratic member left the hearing room.
Epstein Files investigation suggests just 2% of data released to the public. So we were under the impression it was about 50%, and that of that 50%, it was colossally redacted. That's the sense that I got and most of you got. Well, that's wrong. Analysis by Channel 4 News has identified emails within the latest Epstein files that suggest the mountain of information released by the U.S. Department of Justice could amount to just a fraction of the total, potentially just 2% of the information that the FBI retrieved from Epstein's homes. Epstein survivors have told Channel 4 News that they believe that the Trump administration has failed to meet their request to release all the files, and they've illegally released the names of some of the victims, and they're in violation of the law on a daily basis, and somebody's got to go to prison for this. Somebody's got to go down. Based on what we've already seen, we have allegations of cannibalism. We have virtual confirmation of not only rape, but also torture, also murder and manslaughter. That's all in the stuff that we've seen casually being discussed in emails. But let me keep going because I want you to see this. Reuters says the following. Millions of files related to Jeffrey Epstein suggest the existence of a global criminal enterprise that carried out acts meeting the legal threshold of crimes against humanity. A panel of independent experts appointed by the UN Human Rights Council says. So now they're telling the truth. Now they're telling the truth. And their language is a global criminal enterprise doing crimes against humanity.
Epstein was at an almost surreal level of evil. There are things in here that people wouldn't have even made up, like the Rothschild family having Epstein on a retainer, like him talking about being at a pedophile convention with Woody Allen. It just goes on and doesn't stop. The DOJ says they found no co-conspirators. Officials insist that every wild theory or accusation is just paranoia. But then you keep reading and you find an email from a billionaire in Dubai that says, "I loved the torture video. Then another one is full of redacted images with the caption age 11. Then there's another email where they're talking about pizza and grape soda while giggling that no one else can understand. And then you find out that he was doing business with Israeli politicians, and British politicians, and American politicians and their advisors, Democrats and Republicans, and writing about Mossad and Jewish supremacy and how to get children addicted to video games and how to breed perfect babies and how to make young men disillusioned and believe in extremist politics. And then you actually look at what's in these files, not what the government says is in them, but what's actually in there. And it's not just bad, it's not just disturbing, it's enough to make our deepest, darkest conspiracies look like a joke. Every one of the worst, most strangest, insane ideas that's been said about Epstein turns out to have real evidence towards its truth. And so if you think what we've looked at so far is disturbing, if you think the list of rich, influential people who stayed around Epstein after they knew what he was is horrifying, we haven't even gotten to the bad part yet. What we need to understand now is what they were doing, what Epstein's purpose was, why he was so valuable that the most powerful people on Earth couldn't walk away, why the government let him operate for decades, why his network reached into intelligence agencies and political movements, and why all of this was allowed to happen in plain sight. Because this is how our world really works. This is the level of wealth and power where the rules do not apply. For decades, our society has been obsessed with the darkness of the upper levels of power. We've written books and made movies speculating what power and control really means and what it really looks like. This isn't just a story from the past. This is a mirror being held up to the present, to the world we live in right now, to the people who control it. And it's going to make you sick.
Take a look at this 2014 email addressed to Epstein. It reads, quote, "Thank you for a fun night. Your littlest girl was a little naughty." The sender's name is redacted, and it is a reminder of the sensitive matter being dealt with here and why the push for accountability is so dire.
Some of these men may have done horrible things, and if we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But it's also the kind of thing that the American people need to understand, that it isn't a crime to party with Mr. Epstein.
Some of the people whose names are redacted had some of the most disgusting and vile comments that were made. It wasn't just about partying. There were clearly innuendos and references to young girls in very disturbing ways. And yet there are names that are not redacted in the Epstein files. What do you plan on doing this week with the redaction and being able to access it? Do you think we're going to learn the names of some of these individuals? How do we get to that?
Yeah, well, I'm glad that there is accountability in other countries, and we're going to keep working until there's full accountability here for anyone who committed a crime. And I am very concerned that the Trump administration's Department of Justice seems to have redacted a number of the co-conspirators while not protecting and not redacting the names of survivors, including even releasing naked pictures of them when they were girls, their addresses, other identifying information, which is blatantly against the law that we passed that said protect the survivors, but you cannot redact the names of the co-conspirators. I mean, the House Judiciary and the House Oversight Committees are really the ones leading this investigation, and they are doing a rigorous job of trying to figure out exactly what happened and how he got away with it.
They are currently doing that? You think they're currently asking those questions?
I think that they are trying to find all of the information they can, and in particular, how he was able to get away with this even after he was convicted, and why all of these people were still corresponding with him, why they were, still continuing to visit even after it was public, the disgusting and vile things that he did to young girls. So I think there are still a lot of open questions, but I think what's important to know is regardless of who he was working with and for, it's clear that Donald Trump was mentioned 38,000 times and that we need to get answers.
There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that.
I believe you just lied under oath. There is ample evidence in the Epstein files.
Don't you ever accuse me of a crime.
I believe you just lied under oath.
A past interview with Howard Stern now making headlines. Trump talking about how he had free reign at his beauty pageants.
I'll go backstage before a show. Yes. And everyone's getting dressed and ready. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clue. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
Today, a former Miss Arizona, who calls herself a conservative, going public in an interview with KCBS, describing what she says happened backstage with Trump at a Miss USA pageant.
Our first introduction to him was when we were at the dress rehearsal and half naked, changing into our bikinis.
Tasha Dixon detailing her discomfort.
to have the owner come waltzing in when we're naked or half naked in a very physically vulnerable position, and then to have the pressure of the the people that work for him telling us to go fawn all over him, go walk up to him, talk to him, get his attention.
She describes feeling helpless.
Who do you complain to? He owns the pageant. So there's no one to complain to. Everyone there works for him.
I moved on her, actually. You know, she was down in Palm Beach. I moved on her, and I failed. I'll admit it.
Whoa.
I did try and fuck her. She was married.
It's huge news, Sarah.
No, Nancy. No, this was... And I moved on her very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture. I said, I'll show you where they have some nice furniture. I took her out furniture. I moved on her like a bitch, but I couldn't get there. And she was married. And all of a sudden, I see her. She's now got the big phony tits and everything. She's totally changed her look.
She's your girl's hot as shit. In the purple.
Whoa!
Yes!
Whoa!
Yes, the Donald has scored!
Whoa!
Oh, my man! Wait, you gotta look at me when you get out of your legs.
Set this up. That is very...
You give me the thumbs up.
You are a...
You gotta put the thumbs up. You gotta get the thumbs up. Can't be too happy.
else off first? Yeah, let me...
You gotta get the thumbs up.
You and I will work it.
Got it.
Maybe it's a different one.
Better not be the publicist. No, it's
Yeah, that's it, with the gold. I gotta use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. Just I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything.
Those legs, all I can see is the legs.
No, it looks good.
Come on, shorty.
Oh, nice legs.
Oof, get out of the way, honey. That's good legs. Go ahead.
It's always good if you don't fall out of the bus. Like Ford, Gerald Ford, remember?
Down below. Pull the hand.
Hello, how are you? Hi.
Mr. Trump, how
nice
are
seeing
you?
you. Terrific.
Pleasure to meet you.
Terrific. You know Billy Bush?
How are you?
Nice to see you. How you doing, Ariane?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Are you ready to be a soap star?
We're ready. Let's go. Make me a soap star.
How about a little hug for the Donald? He just got off the bus.
Would you like a little hug,
Okay,
darling?
absolutely. Melania said this was
bushy.
okay.
I just got off the bus.
Oh, bushy.
There we go. Excellent. Well, you've got a nice co-star here.
Good.
Yes, absolutely.
After you. Come on, Billy. Don't be shy.
As soon as a beautiful woman shows up, he takes
Get over
off
here,
on
Billy.
his always happy.
I'm sorry, come here.
All right, let the little guy in there.
Yeah, let the little guy in. How you feel now? I should actually.
It's hard to walk next to a guy like this. Yeah, you get in the middle. There we go.
Good. That's
This
better.
is much better. This is.
That's better.
Now, if you had to choose, honestly, between one of us, me or the Donald.
I don't know. That's tough
pressure
competition.
right
Yeah.
Seriously, you had to take one of us as a date.
Let's take fifth on that one.
Really?
Yep, I'll take both.
Which way?
Make it right. Here we go. Right in the days.
Here he goes. I'm gonna leave you here.
Okay.
Get my microphone.
Okay. You gonna? Oh, you're finished?
You're my man. Yeah.
Oh, good.
I'm gonna go do our show.
Oh, you want to reset? Okay.
Attorney General Pam Bondi warned Trump back in May that his name was in the files multiple times.
Since we were talking about fake news, this is going to come up because it's been going on since we've been recording here. Elon and Trump seem to be in a bit of a spat. Joe, I'm going to check the tweet that Elon just put out a little bit ago.
Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein Files. That's the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day. Jesus Christ.
I'm not participating in any of that conversation
What is
between
he?
Elon
Have a
and Trump.
nice day, DJD. Someone's day gets phone away.
They're going back and forth about different things.
Yeah. Listen,
Well, he said he was disappointed in Elon.
Yeah, they told him to leave.
Jesus Christ, that's a crazy thing to say. How does he know? Does he know that Donald Trump is in the Epstein Files? Or does he have access to the Epstein Files?
I don't know how he would, but I'm just staying out of the Trump-Elon thing. That's way outside my lane.
What the fuck are they doing?
I know my lane and that ain't it.
I just don't. I mean, I understand he owns Twitter. I think it's bad for your mental health. I think posting things public all day and arguing with people all day is bad for you.
Donald Trump's name appears thousands of times in the Epstein Files in uncorroborated and often bizarre tip-offs, providing endless fodder for laughs.
Wouldn't it just be easier to call this the Trump Files featuring Jeffrey Epstein? Rolls off the tongue.
The pedophile and president were certainly friends, before a falling out in 2004, though Trump has long maintained he knew nothing of Epstein's crimes.
No, I had no idea. I had no idea. I haven't spoken to him in many, many years, but I did have no idea.
But a claim made in the files contradicts that. In an unexpected twist, Trump has been credited with contacting police when Epstein was first arrested on sex charges in 2006. Trump reportedly said, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this." He described Epstein as disgusting and the financier's girlfriend and co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, as evil, clearly indicating he was aware of their crimes years ago, despite saying otherwise.
Jeffrey Epstein in 2015, he emails someone named Landon Thomas Jr., and he says, "Have them ask my houseman about Donald almost walking through the door, leaving his nose print on the glass as young women were swimming in the pool, and he was so focused he walked straight into the door." Jeffrey Epstein says in emails that he had been advising the Russian government on how to deal with Donald Trump, one of several cases in which he wielded his connections to try to influence the course of foreign affairs.
I think we have a snippet from one of the conversations that I recorded with Epstein. I think this was in a restaurant in 2017.
His people fight each other.
Right.
And then have outsiders. He sort of poisons the well outside. He will tell 10 people Bannon's a scumbag and Priest is not doing a good job and Kelly has a big mouth. What do you think? Jamie Dimon says that you're a problem and I shouldn't keep you. And I spoke to Carl Icahn, and Carl thinks I need a new spokesperson. So Kelly, even though I hired Kellyanne's husband, Kellyanne is just too much of a wild one. And then he tells Bannon, I really want to keep you, but Kellyanne hates you.
I have more than dozens. I probably have 100 hours of Epstein talking about the inner workings of the Trump White House and about his long-standing, deep relationship with Donald Trump.
Jeffrey Epstein says, "I've met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump. Not one decent cell in his body," and he's messaging that to Larry Summers. From Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell, this is April 2nd, 2011. Epstein to Maxwell, "I want you to realize that the dog hasn't barked is Trump. Victim," who's redacted, "spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." And Ghislaine Maxwell says, "I've been thinking about that." Then there's this message between Michael Wolff and Epstein, where Epstein talks about a victim at Mar-a-Lago. Trump said he asked me to resign from Mar-a-Lago. Epstein says, "I was never a member." Of course he knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop.
Mr. President, Epstein has a certain reputation, obviously. Just curious, were some of the workers that were taken from you, were some of them young women? Were some of them young women? Well, I don't want to say, but everyone knows the people that were taken. And it was the concept of taking people that work for me is bad. But that story's been pretty well out there. And the answer is yes, they were. Yes, they were. Yes. Yeah. What did they do? In the spa. Jobs. In the spa. Yeah, people that work in the spa. I have a great spa, one of the best spas in the world at Mar-a-Lago. And people were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want him taking people. And he was fine, and then not too long after that, he did it again, and I said, out of here.
Mr. President, did one of those stolen, persons, that include Virginia Giuffre?
I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. Yeah. He stole her.
From Michael Wolff to Jeffrey Epstein, I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then it gives you valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. Wow, that's some serious stuff that they're talking about.
Redacted reported that some of the things President Trump had spoken about during a car ride on his cell phone were very concerning. Redacted reported he was a few seconds from pulling the limousine over on the median, and also within a few seconds of pulling him out of the car and hurting him due to some of the things that he was saying. Redacted noted Trump continuously stated the name Jeffrey while on the phone and made references to some girl. As Redacted talked about his time meeting Donald Trump, Redacted immediately stated, "He SA'd me." Redacted said, "What?" As Redacted replied, "Donald J. Trump. He SA'd me, along with Jeffrey Epstein." And the report, it continues. Redacted advised Redacted to call the police regarding the incident. As Redacted stated, "I can't. They will kill me." On Christmas Day, Redacted contacted Redacted and stated that she had in fact called the police. Redacted did not hear from Redacted until the 1st of the 10th, 2000. Redacted reached out, stating Redacted was dead and noted that she was found with her head blown off in Kiefer, Oklahoma. Officers on the scene stated that there was no way it was a suicide. The coroner stated that it was a suicide. Redacted later stated Redacted committed suicide because she had gotten from a Mexican cartel. Redacted feels that the murder is a cover for Ghislaine. The accusations don't stop there. In 2020, an alleged victim reported her concerns to the FBI. It says, "I am very concerned for my safety, which is why I have not come forward sooner. I have talked about these incidents for years, and this has been documented. With everything happening now, I feel it is important for investigators to know that Jeffrey Epstein and many other rich, powerful, famous people were involved in trafficking me for them when I was 13 years old. I was by over 176 different men from June 1984 to December 1984. They even murdered that I gave birth to while on the boat. They dumped her body into Lake Michigan. I didn't know just how powerful these men would become until years later. They were actors, musicians, politicians, athletes, royalty, and very wealthy men. Will my identity be able to be kept confidential? These are people who could easily make me disappear if they know that I'm still alive and have started talking." Holy crap. There was also the FBI NTOC names document, which contains a list of more than a dozen allegations against Trump, compiled from phone tips, alleging that girls as young as 13 and that actual parties were held alongside Clinton. This is the largest human trafficking ring ever discovered, and there are no answers for any of these people.
Mark Milton was an Arkansas businessman and former Clinton White House aide who served as a special assistant to President Bill Clinton in the 1990s. Years later, his name resurfaced when records show Jeffrey Epstein visited the White House at least 17 times between 1993 and 1995, with Middleton authorizing several of those visits and even personally flying out on Epstein's private jet. After Epstein's 2019 arrest and death, those connections were revisited, and scrutiny intensified through 2021 and 2022 as Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted and additional court records were unsealed. Then, on May the 7th, 2022, 59-year-old Mark Milton was found dead at the Haifa Ranch in Perryville, Arkansas, about 30 miles from his home. According to law enforcement, he was discovered from a tree with an electrical cord around his neck, and in addition to the investigators documented a shotgun wound to his chest, yet there was no gun in sight. The Arkansas State Medical Examiner ruled that Mark had died despite no sign of a weapon. However, documents released days later would then clarify that a shotgun was actually found roughly 30 feet away from his body, with investigators then theorizing that it must have been the recoil from the discharge that propelled it that far. But following his death, Middleton's family moved to block the release of investigative photos and detailed scene materials, citing their graphic nature, and a judge agreed to seal certain evidence, further limiting public access to the case details. But in the months that followed, scrutiny surrounding Epstein's past connections would remain intense.
President Donald Trump is mentioned thousands of times in unverified allegations reported to the FBI. He dismisses them all as smears, telling reporters it's time for the country to move on.
August 23rd, 2018, Jeffrey Epstein says, "I know how dirty Donald is." Can you imagine these messages that I'm reading? What's in the files if these are the messages that are not in the files? Now, do you all remember the lewd Epstein birthday book that included a joke about Epstein selling a fully depreciated woman to Donald Trump? Now, these new documents, the 20,000 emails, which I've gone through all of them, show that Epstein was telling someone that he gave Trump his 20-year-old girlfriend in the mid-1990s. That he gave his girlfriend secondhand, which is what they were saying, that she was depreciated. Sick, right? That he gave her his seconds. I mean, absolutely disgusting. My 20-year-old girlfriend in 1993. That after 2 years, I gave her to Donald.
One of our interns, I understand, I've gotten word, got completely dolled up in like a schoolgirl outfit today because she heard Donald Trump was coming on and she wants to be the one who gets to go in the green room and have him sign his release.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
She's that into Donald?
I wonder what she's thinking. Maybe if he sees her, she'll get a job.
What is the schoolgirl outfit? Does Donald into underage girls or something?
I don't know.
What do you want me to sign, Jennifer? Okay. Can I use your back? I love this. This is fun. Using Jennifer's back to sign a release. I could do this all day long. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
So how was it? You got to
amazing.
have Mr. Trump sign the release?
He signed it my back.
And how did it feel?
Amazing.
How did he look to you?
Look awesome.
Really?
Yeah. I think he liked the outfit.
You think he did? I know. What do you hope to get out of this today?
Just to say I got to meet Donald Trump.
This fiancée of yours, Melania, she must be terrific in bed because for her to hold on to you all these years, she's got to be doing something special. What's her secret?
Well, she is terrific in bed. Now, she wouldn't want me to say that, but she is. But
is it the amount of positions she knows, or is it the oral? What is it?
Well,
I mean,
you know,
specifically.
She's just overall terrific. I think most important.
Let me ask you this, with all due respect.
But is he going to get married? I mean, is she going to be the perennial fiancé?
Yeah, he's going to get married.
No. When are you getting married?
Well, sometime early next year, probably.
You set a date?
No, we haven't set a date.
Are you playing her, or are you really going to marry her?
No, I'm really good. I don't have the courage to play her.
The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was in the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together. I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time.
Tick-tock, Melania. You're not going to be able to hide it much longer. Take a look at this photo right here. On the left, Paolo Zampoli, Donald Trump, a young boy, Melania Trump, and a woman over there who we will be talking more about. Her name is Amanda Ungaro. She was dating Paolo Zampoli for about 19 years. In the middle, that's their son together. And recently, Amanda Ungaro, the end of 2025, was deported by ICE to Brazil. That's where she was from. She arrived in the United States when she was 17 years old. She was brought here by a guy named Jean-Luc Brunel when she was 17 years old, and Jean-Luc Brunel ran the sex trafficking ring for Jeffrey Epstein. Jean-Luc Brunel purportedly died by suicide a few years back in a French prison, but he was one of Jeffrey Epstein's traffickers, and he brought Amanda Ungaro to the United States.
Crime in connection with Epstein's sex trafficking, abuse of minors, and other repulsive behavior.
And when Donald Trump won During his first term, Paolo Zampoli became a very influential figure within the Trump regime because he was the individual who was running a modeling agency in the 1990s who introduced Donald Trump with Melania. Paolo Zampoli ran a modeling agency, this ID model agency, where he brought over young European girls and women. He would then throw parties in Manhattan at a place called the Kit Kat Club with lions and tigers and zoo animals, and these were wild parties apparently. And he would introduce the wealthy Manhattan businessmen to the European girls or the women that he brought over from Europe. He would help them get their paperwork or make assertions to get paperwork for paths to citizenship in the United States or for temporary status here in the United States. He introduced Melania to Donald Trump at one such party in the Kit Kat Club.
I met my husband by chance at the New York City party in 1998. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump.
He helped Melania with her paperwork to get purportedly this Einstein visa, where she got this expedited visa, and then she met Donald Trump, and the rest is history there. She marries Donald Trump. She then brings her family over. Now, Paolo Zampoli was dating for a very long time, boyfriend, girlfriend, with Amanda Ungaro. Amanda Ungaro and Paolo Zampoli were invited to all of the events during the first Trump term, and even thereafter. They hung out at Mar-a-Lago. They went to all of the places. Amanda Ungaro, for a short period of time, was named the ceremonial ambassador to Grenada. She's actually named a ceremonial ambassador to a country. Right now, Paolo Zampoli has an ambassador position with an ambassador title. He's like a special envoy for American partnerships, and so most recently, he was in Hungary with J.D. Vance in order to help prop up Viktor Orban, but he basically gets to travel the world with this position. Melania came here from Slovenia. Ungaro came here from Brazil, and they had a custody dispute over the child who you see in these photos. And Paolo Zampoli, according to this New York Times article, called ICE to get them to help deport his ex-girlfriend, Amanda Ungaro, and send her back to Brazil so that he could keep custody of their kid, and that he would send her out there. And so she got sent to Brazil. Her kid was basically taken from her. She's got nothing to lose, as she's been putting it, because her life has been ripped away. She's been deported by ICE on this Trump regime. And it makes you also wonder, was part of the reason to deport her was that she knew some secrets as well. In addition to the custody dispute, there are emails from you, Melania, from 2002 to Ghislaine Maxwell calling her G and saying, "Hey, G."
I never had a relationship with Epstein or his accomplice, Maxwell.
Great New York Magazine article. You look great in the photos. J.E. Jeffrey Epstein came out great. We should hang out soon. Looking forward to seeing you. Yeah, the New York Magazine article you were praising, Melania, was the one where Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump were in it, and Donald Trump said Epstein's a great guy who likes women on the younger side, beautiful women on the younger side. That New York Magazine article where you were saying that Ghislaine Maxwell looked great and Jeffrey Epstein was amazing in it, that was like the red flag article. And let's take a look at what Amanda Ungaro's posts are. She goes, "Hello, Melania. I was around you for 20 years. You knew I was inside ICE, and you know what hurts after all this time? I stayed close to your family, your mother and your father, not because of you, but because of them, at events and everything else. So shut your mouth when speaking about me, because I will expose everything I know until you fall as a little chicken. I have nothing left to lose in my life. I will tear down the entire system. Be careful with me, bitch. I will tear down your corrupt system, even if it's the last thing I do in my life. I will go all the way. way. I'm not afraid. Maybe you should be afraid of what I know, of who you are and who your husband is. We'll take legal action against you and your pedophile husband. I have known you for 20 years. You knew I was detained in ICE. You were present in my life every year on my son's birthday, even sending Secret Service and being the first to congratulate him back in 2016. Something was clearly wrong, but I'm not part of any evil mission involving children. So what did you do, Melania? You tried to involve me, but you failed because I have character. Do you know what I think about you after 20 years? And so she's saying, I know a lot about what's going on, and I'm going to expose it all. Could you imagine if a depo of Amanda Ungaro is one of the things that opens this all up even more? As I said, tick-tock, Melania, your dark past is a surfacing. Paolo Zampoli said that he wants to have his deposition taken because he wants to set the record straight. He says, I want to set the record straight. He says that it was not Jeffrey Epstein who introduced Donald Trump and Melania. It was me. I introduced. I don't think it makes it much better that you were the one who introduced Donald Trump to Melania versus you were close friends with Epstein. What were you doing? What was your modeling agency about? What do you mean that you brought these individuals from Eastern Europe? Imagine deposing Paolo Zampoli now about Melania Trump's immigration status and how she got the Einstein visa.
I call on Congress to provide the women who have been victimized by Epstein with a public hearing specifically centered around the survivors. Give these victims their opportunity to testify under oath in front of Congress with the power of sworn testimony. Each and every woman should have her day to tell her story in public if she wishes, and then her testimony should be permanently entered into the congressional record. Then, and only then, we will have the truth. Thank you.
Secretary Lutnick to continue serving.
President, right now there have been survivors of Jeffrey Epstein speaking at a press conference on Capitol Hill. They're calling for these case files, these documents to be released. Is the Justice Department protecting any friends or donors, sir? So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. Everybody in Palm Beach knew him. I had a falling out with him a long time ago. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I wasn't a fan. Come on in, go inside.
An invitation into Donald Trump's world. Footage from 1992 found in the NBC archives shows the future president welcoming Jeffrey Epstein to his Mar-a-Lago estate. The get-together more than a decade before Epstein pleaded guilty to prostitution charges in Florida. Both men are seen enjoying themselves, Trump pointing out women dancing in front of them. An apparently friendly encounter with the man the president is now looking to distance himself from.
Well, I knew him, from what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president. So what they're trying to do with the Epstein hoax is get people to talk about that instead of speaking about the tremendous success like ending 7 wars. I ended 7 wars. Nobody's going to talk about because they're going to talk about the Epstein whatever. I understand that we were subpoenaed to give files, and I understand we've given thousands of pages of files. And I know that no matter what you do, it's going to keep going. And I think it's enough because I think we should talk about the greatness of our country and the success that we're having.
Kash Patel under oath said Trump's name appears less than 100 times in the files. We now know that's not true. Trump's name appears more times in the Epstein files than God's name appears in the book about God. There are documents in the files that dispute the president's claim that he kicked Epstein out of his club. Allegedly, the president said that he asked Epstein to leave. Supported now, that's disputed though, statements from the manager of the club. Now, Madam Attorney General, I have like 25 seconds left. So because I'm curious, and I'd like to see, flip to the Jared Moskowitz section of the binder. I'm interested to see what staff provided on the oppo on me, and because we're in the Olympics, I'm gonna give it a grade. I just want to see how good it is. So give me your best one.
So first of all, nothing is funny about mocking the Bible and holding up a Trump Bible. That's what you did. You made a joke, and I find offense to that. That's all I have to say.
I want it from the burn book.
Shame.
I want it from the burn book, which is the best one. What you got?
Mr. President, I know you want to move past all this intrigue over the Epstein files, but I do want to ask you to clarify something you said this morning. You said this was all a hoax. Has your Attorney General told you this was a hoax? What evidence have you seen of that?
The Attorney General. It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net, and so they try and do the Democrats' work. They're wasting their time with a guy who obviously had some very serious problems, who died 3-4 years ago. I'd rather talk about the success we have with the economy, the best we've ever had, and all of the things we've done, including in the Middle East. I mean, you see it. Instead, they want to talk about the Epstein hoax. And the sad part is it's people that are really doing the Democrats' work. They're stupid people.
For almost 20 years, beginning in the late 1980s, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein maintained a close friendship. They were regulars at each other's homes, Epstein at Trump's Mar-a-Lago club and Trump at Epstein's Manhattan mansion. It's no surprise to hear that Trump's name turns up in any investigation of Epstein simply because they spent so much time together.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, if I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
Trump famously said, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." Epstein reportedly believed himself to be Trump's closest friend and claims that he introduced Trump to his most recent wife. According to the Washington Post, their friendship soured in 2004 over a Palm Beach real estate deal. According to the Washington Post, on the day of the auction, Epstein's attorney tried to disqualify Trump from bidding. Epstein and his lawyer, it appears, were unaware that Trump was listening in on speakerphone. Trump eventually won the auction, paying $41 million for the property. According to the records, Trump left 2 messages for Epstein later that month, and that was their last proven contact. Trump has since claimed, without providing detail or proof, that he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. Epstein had never been a member of Mar-a-Lago. He had always just been there as a guest of Trump's. Mark Epstein claims that in an unaired interview conducted by Steve Bannon in 2019, Jeffrey Epstein said that he distanced himself from Trump after realizing that Trump was a crook. Mark Epstein allegedly viewed the clip online before the link to it expired, and he said that his brother had forwarded it to him shortly before his death. These conflicting accounts, Trump's vague claims of a falling out, and Epstein's alleged private remarks have only added to the intrigue and the conspiracy theories.
Even with all the redactions, we know that Donald Trump is mentioned 38,000 times in the Epstein files. Donald Trump is literally mentioned more in the Epstein files than Harry Potter is mentioned in the Harry Potter books. And so, yes, I'm glad that we're making progress and we're going to get more information and more of these names are going to come out. And we don't need more information to know that Republicans should be holding Donald Trump accountable. They should be dragging him in, making him answer questions. And if they don't do it when we're in power, we will.
Congresswoman, in addition to the president, there is some suggestion or some evidence that some of the other members of his administration may have had closer relationships, shall we say, with Jeffrey Epstein than has been publicly revealed to be the case. CBS, for example, is gathering from the latest DOJ document drop, the Epstein Files, that Howard Lutnick, who was the Commerce Secretary, and Epstein may have been in business together.
Howard Lutnick is an American billionaire businessman and now also the United States Secretary of Commerce, a job in the top 10 of the presidential line of succession that's responsible for advising the president on all matters relating to American business and industry. He's also former neighbors with Jeffrey Epstein for many years.
You have known Donald Trump for 30 years. You know everybody, Elon Musk, Charlie Kirk, Jeffrey Epstein was your neighbor. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about him, East 71st Street. He was your neighbor for 10 years. How well did you know him?
All right, so we are in number 11 and he lives in number 9.
Right.
So we renovate, we buy our house, and our house is pigeons and mice.
Right.
Okay, that's it. It was derelict.
Right.
So we rebuild our house. We move in 2005. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein is arrested in like 08, I think, or something like that.
Right.
So knock on the door. His assistant on like a Saturday says, Mr. Epstein, your neighbor would like to invite you over for coffee. So my wife and I go next door. We walk the 7 steps,
yes,
right, to the next house for coffee. We share a wall.
Right.
Right? So it's in New York City. So he invites us in. We have coffee in this, and he says, do you want a tour? We said, great.
Interesting.
He's got a really big house.
Every room you went into?
He's got, well, I'll tell you. So his house is like super big, really wide. And so he gives me a tour in the living room, big living room. And then across from it is double doors. I assume it's the dining room.
Yeah.
And he opens the doors and there's a massage table in the middle of the room.
Ooh.
And candles all around and stuff. So I ask very insightful, cutting questions. I say to him, massage table in the middle of your house? How often do you have a massage? And he says, every day. And then he gets weirdly close to me.
Ooh.
And he says, and the right kind of massage.
Ooh.
Now my wife is standing here. So she looks at me and I look at her and we say, I'm sorry. We have to go. And we left. And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again. Oh, so I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross.
Howard Lutnick has said publicly that he cut ties with Jeffrey Epstein because he found him gross and disgusting, I think as far back as 2004, 2005. These documents suggest that they were signing documents to have stakes in a firm as recently as 2014.
Secretary Lutnick, as I said in my opening statement, you led people to believe that you had cut off all contact with Jeffrey Epstein after the 2005 encounter you and your wife had in his apartment. But as I'm sure you know, the Epstein Philes show a very different record of interaction.
In 2011, Epstein sold a property adjacent to his infamous townhouse to Cantor Fitzgerald CEO Howard Lutnick at a 65% discount to what he had paid for it just 2 years earlier. This is especially surprising as New York real estate prices rose 6% over that holding period. Lutnick famously held a fundraiser for Hillary Clinton at that home in 2015 when she was running against Donald Trump. The deal has prompted speculation. After all, it's not every day that someone picks up prime Manhattan real estate at clearance sale prices.
I look back at it as a gift.
Yes.
He gave me a gift.
Yes.
Of a voice.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I did not have any relationship with him. I barely had anything to do with that person.
In reality, the newly released files showed that Howard Lutnick had lied. In 2012, he also brought his wife and children to Epstein's Island for what would be described as a lunch.
We had lunch on the island. That is true, for an hour, and we left with all of my children with my nannies and my wife all together. We were on family vacation. We were not apart. To suggest there was anything untoward about that in 2012, I don't recall why we did it.
And even more documents show that they were actually in business together as well. Lutnick and Epstein each signed on behalf of LLCs that agreed on December 28, 2012 to acquire stakes in a now shuttered advertising company called AdFin. Epstein and Lutnick's signature appear on neighboring pages in the contract. The document lists 9 shareholders in total. The Epstein archive also shows them emailing each other all the way up until 2018.
I met him 2 other times that I can recall. 2 times. And that is none for 6 years. So 6 years later, I met him. And then a year and a half after that, I met him, and never again.
This email showing an appointment for drinks in 2011, years after Epstein first pleaded guilty to sex crimes.
I mean, that's an incredible story that you could pick up that he was a pervert.
It's gross. The guy's gross. Right with my wife. He's gross. The guy's gross. This was not, the deep nuance of Howard Lutnick. This guy's gross.
Right.
My wife was with me, as were my 4 children and nannies. I had another couple they were there as well with their children. I don't recall why we did it, but
Mr. Secretary, again, as I said, there's not an indication that you yourself engaged in any wrongdoing with Jeffrey Epstein. It's the fact that you believe that you misled the country and the Congress based on your earlier statements. There's also a reference to the fact that Epstein had expressed an interest in meeting your nanny. Do you know whether Jeffrey Epstein ever met with your nanny?
No, I saw that. I had no idea what that was about.
Lutnick says that in 2008 he went to Epstein's home, says he had a massage table in the living room, that Epstein said he got one every day, that it was the right type of massage. He and his wife decide to leave and say they'll never be in a room with him again. Howard then says, I'm sure the Epstein stuff is all on video. He was the greatest blackmailer of all time. Well, how would Howard know that? But now the files are public, and in 2012 we find out that he and his family are on Epstein Island after Epstein pled guilty to state charges. I'm from Florida. I take my family to Disney World, not to Epstein Island.
So how come Bill Gates and all these other people could hang around him and not see what you saw? Or did they see it and ignore it? Or
no, they participated.
Right.
That's what his MO was, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume was on video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever. I assume way back when, they traded those videos in exchange for him getting that 18-month sentence, which allowed him to have visits and be out of jail. I mean, he's a serial sex offender.
This is one of the United States' most senior government officials in office right now today, blatantly lying to the world about his connection to the billionaire who was running an industrial-scale child sex trafficking operation while they were in contact with each other. And he didn't just lie about knowing him, he lied about vacationing with him and doing business deals with him for years after the world knew exactly what he was.
Did have lunch with him as I was on a boat going across on a family vacation. I have nothing to hide.
Democrats and at least one Republican now calling on Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to resign.
Will you be investigating the possible ties between other members of this administration and the late Jeffrey Epstein?
Absolutely. And I think that we're already seeing how much closer ties many people close to Trump had, right? Melania, Lutnick, Elon Musk, and others. And I think it's very concerning. And we need to be holding everyone accountable who was part of this, regardless of what positions they hold, regardless of their political party. Because honestly, this just goes to show what the American people have long felt, right? That if you're wealthy, if you're powerful, you get to play by a different set of rules and you're not held accountable, and it's time for that to end.
When it comes to the full picture of Jeffrey Epstein's social life, this is only the tip of the iceberg. And perhaps nobody illustrates that better than the man who spent 2025 loudly demanding the Epstein files be released, only for their release to reveal his own lies. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world. Inventor and leader of companies creating brain-computer interfaces, electric cars, rocket ships, and more. He's also a longtime friend of Jeffrey Epstein. On September 25th, 2012, Epstein writes to Elon Musk, "If you find some time, come visit me on my island in the Caribbean. Bring your friend or friends." Musk replies, "Sounds good. We'll try to make it." For years following his arrest and death, Elon Musk tried desperately to distance himself from Jeffrey Epstein. In September of 2025, as the case began to rear its head again, he wrote, "Epstein tried to get me to go on his island and I refused." But as it would turn out, the truth would be nearly the exact opposite of what he had insisted for so long. 2 months after their first interaction, he emails Jeffrey Epstein to ask which day would have the wildest party on his island. He talks about wanting to let loose and have fun, and asks if Epstein has any parties planned because he needs the opposite of a peaceful island experience. In return, Epstein offers to send a helicopter to bring him. Another email from the fall of 2013 shows Epstein inviting Musk to visit him at his house in New York and meet many interesting people around the time of the UN General Assembly, to which Elon Musk responds with a rant about how busy he is, before Epstein asks, "Do you think I'm retarded? Just kidding. There's no one over 25 and they're all very cute." Then, a year later, around Christmas time again, Elon Musk asks if it's a good time to visit the island. Even later on, they would email to coordinate times for Epstein to come have lunch and tour the SpaceX facilities with Musk, and even after that, they would talk more about Epstein's idea to expand Tesla distribution to Israel. Elon Musk's public reaction to these emails has been one of complete deflection and denial. However, his public statements do contradict what's in the messages. Elon Musk never refused to visit. In fact, he begged for invitations. He coordinated meetings. He invited himself, all while Epstein was a registered file sex offender who just got out of prison 3 years earlier.
Here is the flight log to Epstein's private island, Little St. James, and immediately standing out are the names of Donald Trump and Bill Clinton, the current and former presidents of the United States. Also, we have Prince Andrew of England and celebrities like Kevin Spacey and Mick Jagger. And then we have an email from 2010 in which Epstein was granted security clearance for an event involving the world's most powerful politicians, in which it said, "Jeffrey, please come. You may have private time with each. Your security clearance is approved." From 2012, an email references Torbjörn Jagland, the head of the Nobel Prize Committee and Secretary of the Council of Europe. And Epstein, he also received an email from a Dubai billionaire describing a lunch at the Elysee Palace with Emmanuel Macron, the then French Minister of Economy, who would become the president of France.
For years, the friends of Jeffrey Epstein have been in a battle to prove their innocence. Who had known him only as a rich financier, and who knew his darkest secrets?
I never went to the island, I never met any women, and although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
Bill Gates on Australian TV strongly denying new Jeffrey Epstein allegations. Gates says he regrets continuing his relationship with the late convicted pedophile, but says he did so hoping to get funding for his foundation, Global Health.
Bill Gates, from 1995 to 2017, was the wealthiest person in the world. Before that, he was also the world's youngest billionaire during the 80s and 90s.
We're expecting to do just over $100 million this year.
And still, today, he's one of the top 10 richest men alive. And it's been known for a long time that Bill Gates and Epstein knew each other well enough for Gates to have flown on Epstein's plane and even have visited his island. Two things that have become this insane albatross around his neck ever since Epstein's death. When you read through these documents Epstein had prepared for Gates, though, I'll admit it looks like a pretty blatant attempt at blackmail. It's really easy to tell how Epstein knew exactly the reaction he was trying to elicit with every word he wrote.
In the documents, Epstein wrote that Gates begged him to please delete their emails regarding a sexually transmitted disease and antibiotics, fearing his now ex-wife Melinda would see. Gates is one of many rich and powerful men mentioned in the 3 million newly released Epstein documents.
Another very prominent person caught up in all this is Bill Gates, of course, claims that he picked up a sexually transmitted disease from a Russian woman. He's denied that publicly, but listen to Melinda Gates, the former wife of Bill Gates, talking about all of this.
Whatever questions remain there of what I can't even begin to know all of it, those questions are for those people and for even my ex-husband. They need to answer to those things, not me. Well, and I am so happy to be away from all the muck that was there.
She's happy she's no longer married to Bill Gates. She's happy to be away from the muck, as she put it. And we've just seen this interview with Bill Gates on Channel 9.
It's factually true that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
Unfortunately for Bill Gates, now he has to probably deal with the insinuation, at least for many people, that Melinda chose to divorce him and get herself out of that world, also because of his association or his tenuous links, which he denies, with Jeffrey Epstein. The allegation that he presumably got an STD from a Russian prostitute that was associated with Jeffrey Epstein was actually written in a note by Jeffrey Epstein to himself. So it wasn't actually a form of correspondence. So there are allegations that he wrote that for the purposes of explicit blackmailing, which again will become clearer later on down the line. But obviously the damage is already done. It's just a terrible, terrible story.
Bill Gates, of course, absolutely denies everything to do with him and Epstein. He has for years, and he still does today. And hey, to be fair to Bill Gates, nothing else in the docs technically corroborates the outlandish claims that Epstein makes in his email. The only problem is that denials only go so far when your own family refuses to stand in your corner. While Bill Gates and his team were outright dismissing the documents as the desperate ramblings of a man who clearly was trying to hold him hostage, in 2011, Epstein was introduced by Boris Nikolic, longtime scientific advisor of Bill Gates, to a 23-year-old man named Christopher Poole. Poole at this point was already famous, or should I say infamous, given that he had already been voted by Time as the most influential person of 2008 after founding the anonymous online forum 4chan when he was 15 in 2003. 4chan over the years would become both the internet's most culturally influential and also most horrific platform, a breeding ground for the most viral memes and extreme ideologies and even real-world violence, described by some as an incubator for the darkest corners of online culture and politics. Its B board in particular attracted significant media attention when it became a lawless home for the sharing of porn and other illegal content in the early 2010s. But Nikolic writes to Epstein, "There is a really cool kid you should meet. He's only 23. Read his bio." Epstein replies later that he loved meeting Moot and he calls him bright. He said, "I drove him home. He's very bright. I liked him a lot." Later on, Nikolic sends an article about 4chan, writing, "This article describes why I find Moot interesting. The potential for manipulation is huge." And it just so happened that just 2 days after Christopher Poole met Epstein, 4chan would open up what would become its most famous board of all, Politically Incorrect. And of course, it's impossible to know what he said to Moot when they met or how many times they met, although it was confirmed that they would meet up multiple times after their first introduction. But either way, the timing of that initial meeting is curious, because Politically Incorrect, or POL for short, after being launched in October of 2011, would quickly become known as a home for anti-Semitism, white nationalism, and even as the ideological origin point for a number of high-profile mass shootings around the world. And it didn't stop there. It would become, in effect, exactly what Nikolic and Epstein thought it could be, a place where the potential for manipulation was huge, a place where anonymous, disaffected young people could be radicalized, organized, and even mobilized. Undoubtedly, POL is the birthplace of the wave of populist ultranationalism that has come to dominate the landscape of American politics in the 21st century so far. And over time, POL's potency and influence has become so large that, considering its destabilizing effect on American politics as possibly the project of an intelligence agency, has been impossible to ignore. Over the years, various pieces of evidence, with things like IP leaks showing a huge overrepresentation of users in Israel, it's given credence to the idea that the CIA, the IDF, or the FSB, or something else entirely, may have manipulated or even originated the rise of the alt-right in the early 2010s completely on purpose. And Jeffrey Epstein was there at the beginning. And that may just be a coincidence. But it might also be a coincidence in the same way that having a multi-billionaire write 900 emails about ordering cheese pizza for him and his friends while they giggle about no one else understanding their code words is just a coincidence. But if we're being honest, 4chan, for all of its outsized cultural influence and Epstein's strange involvement, that may have still just been a relatively minor curiosity in Epstein's world. Moot from 4chan is not the only online political personality Epstein would meet with. Steve Bannon is the former chairman of Breitbart News. He was the chief strategist in Donald Trump's White House in 2017. At one point, he was also the vice president of Cambridge Analytica, the data firm that harvested the personal information of tens of millions of Facebook users without their consent to build psychographic profiles and micro-targeting target voters with political advertising designed to exploit their individual fears, prejudices, and vulnerabilities. And perhaps most importantly for the purposes of this story, he's also one of the most influential voices in the MAGA movement, the host of the War Room podcast, and the man who arguably did more than any other single person to build the ideological basis of America's far right. And he appears in the Epstein Files almost 2,000 times. Their relationship wasn't casual, it wasn't transactional, it wasn't photos and handshakes at parties. It was, by any honest reading of these emails, one of the closest and most significant friendships of the last decade of Jeffrey Epstein's life. After meeting in 2017, Epstein and Bannon began texting constantly, sharing political intelligence, mocking Donald Trump behind his back, and scheming on how to reshape global politics together. At the same time, Bannon was helping Epstein rehab his PR. They recorded dozens of hours of interviews to help Epstein change his image. He told him, "You're engaging, you're not threatening, you don't look at all creepy." In April of 2019, Bannon writes to Epstein, "We must counter the narrative that says who traffics in female children to be by the world's most powerful, richest men." This is one of the most influential political operatives alive, the man who came up with Trumpism and designed the right-wing resurgence that dominates politics today, sitting in Jeffrey Epstein's corner, trying to help him fix his image. Even on the very same day Epstein was arrested, his last day alive as a free man, they were texting about meeting up for breakfast to continue their project of making Epstein look better and bring him back into the public eye. The last message reads, "All canceled."
It is extraordinary. After millions of documents were released in the Epstein investigation, it has triggered international and political fallout.
Some repercussions to the Epstein files are already playing out overseas. Former UK ambassador to the United States, Peter Mendelsohn, is retiring from Parliament's upper chamber due to his links to Epstein. He was fired as ambassador by Prime Minister Keir Starmer back in September over his ties to Epstein. Mendelsohn has denied any knowledge of or complicity in Epstein's sexual crimes. And now Starmer is also facing growing calls to resign since he appointed Mendelsohn. In countries like Poland, Norway, France, and Slovakia, we are now seeing a flood of investigations and resignations into people linked to the late sex offender. But here at home, the latest batch of documents are being slammed over questionable reactions.
Have you ever heard of Richard Branson? He built the Virgin Group, styled himself as the world's most accessible billionaire. He kiteboarded with models on his back. He also owned a private island and was knighted by Queen Elizabeth herself. And Branson? He's going to send him an email on September 11th. He says, "Dear Jeffrey, it was really nice seeing you yesterday. The boys in water sports, they can't stop speaking about it. Anytime you're in the area, would love to see you, as long as you bring your harem." He used the word harem to a registered sex offender. I'm sorry, what? And then, in the same email chain, is a suggestion that Bill Gates tell the public that Epstein had merely slipped up many years ago by sleeping with a 17-and-a-half-year-old woman, and that he'd more than learned his lesson. Now keep in mind, this is a knight of the British Empire coaching a convicted PDF on how to spin sleeping with.
Each day, it seems, there's another name and another headline.
An international domino effect as millions of documents reveal Epstein was connected to the global elite.
The most high-profile fall from grace came with the shock arrest of the former prince, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, under suspicion of sharing trade secrets with Epstein. But there have been others, with mass resignations and reckonings across business, academia, and foreign politics.
The Met said Lord Mandelson was being investigated on suspicion of misconduct in public office.
Former Prime Minister of Norway has been charged with gross corruption.
Sarah Ferguson also now facing new questions. She's now shutting down 6 of her companies.
Media mogul and chairman of the 2028 LA Olympics Organizing Committee, Casey Wasserman, now selling his talent agency amid major fallout over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
It was the moment that caught the world by surprise.
Bombshell arrest of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation.
Former Prince Andrew under arrest. the shock etched on his face.
Everybody is equal and nobody is above the law.
Questioned under caution like a common criminal.
Your Majesty, how are you feeling after your brother's arrest?
The ex-royal is the biggest casualty so far in the Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
It's an unprecedented moment.
A scandal that reaches from beyond the grave.
This is where the house of cards starts falling.
As the disgraced financier's dirty secrets threaten to tear down society's most powerful.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
No, but I do have a good mirror.
But by far the most consequential is this royal reckoning decades in the making.
Fox News Alert, we begin this hour with a breaking news story out of the UK.
BBC understands that he has been arrested.
It's believed the first British royal arrested in nearly 400 years.
An arrest of this magnitude has no precedent in modern British history.
As the world watched, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was hauled in by police for 11 hours of questioning on suspicion of misconduct in public office.
This is not, at least not yet, about sex trafficking.
Police are investigating a handful of emails uncovered in the Epstein Files. They appear to show Andrew, once an official trade envoy, sharing government secrets directly with his sex offender friend. But there's more, from trading secrets to trading young women.
Apparently Epstein had offered to arrange for Andrew to have dinner with a 26-year-old clever, beautiful, trustworthy Russian woman. And Andrew apparently responded that he would be delighted.
The creepy ex-duke was also caught out unceremoniously on all fours in Epstein's home.
These are the latest pictures of the man formerly known as Prince Andrew.
For his sins, the king's brother has already been kicked out of his royal lodgings, stripped of his titles, and now at least 9 police departments are probing his true ties to Epstein.
But I have simply no recollection.
From former prince to president.
It takes a lot of trust with horses, and if you're kind to them, they're kind to you back.
When I first met Virginia Giuffre 7 years ago, she shared a story so sprawling and so dark that it was near impossible to fathom. She had the courage to speak out against power and privilege when it was just her word against theirs. What sort of men were you being trafficked to?
I was trafficked to other billionaires. I was trafficked to politicians, professors, even royalty. It was the most powerful people in the world, and those are our leaders. Those are the people that we are supposed to look up to. It's corrupt. It's corrupt to the core.
And it was this photo that changed everything. The 17-year-old Virginia captured in 2001, uncomfortably close to former Prince Andrew. It was taken, she said, just before she learned she was to have sex with him. Trafficked to the then royal by Epstein and his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell.
He took a photo and your arm is round her waist.
They are allegations the disgraced Andrew has long denied.
You've seen the photo?
I've seen the photograph.
How do you explain that? With your arm round
that's me, but whether that's my hand or whether that's the position, I have simply no recollection of a photograph ever being taken.
He needs to stop with all of these lame excuses. We're sick of hearing it. This is a real photo.
I don't believe that. I don't believe it's real for a second. In fact, I'm sure it's not.
But now, all these years later, Virginia has been vindicated. Buried in the Epstein files was this email from the now convicted Maxwell, referring to the disputed photo.
Which appears to contradict Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's long-held suggestion that the now infamous photo was not real.
It's the proof, if anyone needed it, Virginia was telling the truth all along. Proof, too, that in their denials about this photo, Maxwell and Andrew were lying. The bittersweet revelation comes too late for Virginia, who last year took her life on her property an hour north of Perth.
We all know that Prince Andrew, son of Queen Elizabeth, was one of Epstein's most loyal associates and has been all but criminally convicted of him, to the point where even the King of England has put out a statement saying he's ready to cooperate with police against his own brother. In addition to that, there are now photos that have been released of him naked with women and crouching over a woman on a floor in Epstein's house. But Epstein wasn't just friends with the figurehead prince. There are, in fact, real working English politicians that appear all throughout the files as well. Peter Mandelson, former EU Commissioner, Member of Parliament, Labour Cabinet Minister, and UK Ambassador to the US, as well as key advisor to Tony Blair, appears throughout the files thousands of times. Epstein's 2003 birthday book, which included the infamous drawing from President Trump, also includes a pretty similar note from Peter Mandelson, which includes quotes about Epstein being his best pal and mentions the interesting friends that Epstein loves to bring around. But still, it goes even further. They didn't just email each other little giggles and jokes. During this time in Mandelson's career, he was actively in office. And now, with more emails coming out, it's been revealed that he was illegally sending Jeffrey Epstein classified information about developments in UK politics. When writing to Epstein about new tax policies, he pledged to lobby his own government on behalf of an interest in lower taxes for bankers, like he and Epstein were working on that together. In 2010, he would give Epstein advance notice of a €500 billion bailout scheduled for the next day, and Epstein's documents also show records of him sending payments nearing $100,000 in value to Mandelson and his husband. In the aftermath of these documents being released, Mandelson has been branded as having betrayed his country, with London's Metropolitan Police launching a criminal investigation against him for misconduct in office. Essentially, Epstein had people within multiple foreign governments sending him privileged information. A disgraced former Prime Minister of Israel using Epstein as a shadow diplomat and a fixer across 3 continents. A sitting British cabinet minister leaking classified economic intelligence to him during the worst financial crisis in Britain's modern history. These are not the relationships of a socialite. These are the relationships of a man who operated at the intersection of money, intelligence, and power. And somehow, it still goes even deeper than that. Ariane de Rothschild, having married into the Rothschild family in the 1990s, is a French banker and current CEO of the Edmond de Rothschild Group, an offshoot of the Rothschild family dynasty that for centuries has dominated banking across Europe, establishing itself as the most influential family-controlled financial institution in the world. Ariane herself is worth an estimated $5 billion, and despite maintaining that she only knew Epstein in the context of her normal work duties, documents revealed that she in fact held dozens of personal meetings with him between 2013 and 2019, paid him a $25 million consulting contract, and also helped him find assistants, which according to many outlets was a code word for prostitutes.
A wellness guru prescribing health advice between vulgar emails.
Peter Attia was mentioned almost 2,000 times in the Epstein Files. Tia wrote one email to Epstein in February of 2016 that a woman's private parts were low carb. You have an email from June 24, 2015, where Tia seemingly writes, "The biggest problem with becoming friends with you, the life you lead is so outrageous, and yet I can't tell a soul."
Peter Attia, best-selling author, researcher, CBS contributor and ambassador, and investor in rapidly growing protein brand David. Overall, charming celebrity doctor, media personality, known around the world as an expert on aging and longevity. But when you search his name in the Epstein Files, he comes back almost 2,000 times. In June of 2015, 6 years after Epstein got out of prison, Attia writes him an email with the subject, "Got a fresh shipment," with a now-redacted image attached. Epstein replies with his own now-redacted image. Attia says, "Please tell me you found that picture online." Epstein confirms that whatever it is in the image belongs to him, to which Attia responds, "The biggest problem with being friends with you is that the life you lead is so outrageous, yet I can't tell a soul."
What is weird about this conversation is that the redacted image implies something very disturbing was sent, right? The DOJ doesn't just censor random images. They censor the worst material. This is material that is deemed not appropriate for public release, like at all. So what was in that picture remains unknown. But on February 3rd, 2026, Attia publicly apologized, stating that he was not involved in any criminal activity and he has never been on Epstein's plane or island and had never been present at any actual parties.
Over the years, Atiyah writes to Epstein about going through withdrawal when he wasn't seeing him. They would joke about the macronutrients in women's pussies. Atiyah would reach out to Epstein and talk about visiting his island. He would write, "Nothing like Little St. James, I bet." Their emails even reveal a dark truth from Atiyah's personal life. In a book he wrote in 2023, Atiyah shared that in 2017, he had been so selfishly absorbed with his work while on a trip to New York City that he did not go home to be with his family in California after his infant son had a heart attack, ultimately only returning 10 days after it had happened. Meanwhile, he had been emailing with Epstein to organize a meeting during that same week. Just days after the files were released, Atiyah wrote in his apology tweet that in November of 2018, he read the Miami Herald investigative article about Epstein and was repulsed and nauseated. But even that was just another lie. In reality, after Epstein's crimes were re-exposed by the Miami Herald in 2018, Atiyah's correspondence with him only continued, all the way up until the spring of 2019. Just before Epstein was arrested, Atiyah would continue emailing to check up on him. He would ask how he was doing in the wake of the article's release, making sure he was okay and that he wasn't taking it too hard. Clearly, he was not repulsed or nauseated enough to bring their friendship to an end. This is the pattern that emerges from Epstein's emails over and over and over. Prominent, powerful people knew exactly who he was and what he had done, and then they stayed in his circle anyway. Peter Atiyah is not unique in this. He's not even unusual.
But the difference with him is that most of the people that did turn away, they didn't have a redacted FBI image sitting in their email thread.
There are many, many other people in positions of power who appear in the Epstein files and add their own pieces to the puzzle. Catherine Rumler is an attorney who, following a decorated career as a federal prosecutor involved in convicting the Enron executives in the early 2000s, served for a while as White House counsel, the White House's personal lawyer, under the Barack Obama presidency. Today, she's the chief legal officer at Goldman Sachs. Essentially, she's one of the most powerful lawyers in the world. And when you search her name in the Epstein files, you'll find her corresponding with Epstein dozens of times, years after his conviction, years after he was a registered sex offender, years after everyone knew what he had done. Their emails, many of which were sent while she was working under the Obama administration, show Epstein arranging for her to fly on his plane, visit his island. It shows him sending her many tens of thousands of dollars worth of gifts, making jokes about his penis together. This is a former top lawyer for the president of the US, someone whose entire career was built on the premise of legal, ethical judgment, and she was socializing with a convicted pedophile like it was nothing. In the spring of 2012, Epstein was planning a trip to Paris, and during an email with a friend, he lets it slip that he's going with Woody. Woody, of course, being the 4-time Academy Award-winning, world-famous film director with 50 movies to his name, Woody Allen. And then, Epstein's friend asks if they're going for the pedophile convention, to which Epstein replies, "I think Philes is the plural." And Woody Allen, besides being a filmmaker, is also the man who began a sexual relationship with and later married his own ex-wife's adopted daughter. Woody Allen goes on to appear in the files 7,000 times. They plan visits to Little St. James and Epstein's ranch in New Mexico. They organize dinners in New York and Paris. Epstein gives him furniture. He coordinates with his wife. Woody Allen made movies. He has fame, influence, cultural capital. He's a highly respected artist. Really, he's one of the most beloved filmmakers alive. Critics praise his films, journalists still clamor to talk to him, actors want to work with him, he's received every award there is, but at the same time, he spent years scheduling visits to Jeffrey Epstein's island. And the fact that he was right there in Epstein's inner circle for years after the conviction, it tells you something that's deeper than just emails. It tells you that Epstein's world wasn't a shadowy conspiracy, it wasn't hidden, it was full of the same people our culture celebrates.
Emails reveal that Epstein invested $3 million in Coinbase in 2014. He also invested in Blockstream, one of the earliest Bitcoin infrastructure companies. Blockstream's co-founder, Adam Black, confirmed the meeting and the investment. He donated over $800,000 to MIT. A significant portion of that went to the Digital Currency Initiative, the same program that ended up paying the salaries of several Bitcoin core developers after the Bitcoin Foundation hit a financial crisis in 2015. And in a 2016 email, Epstein claimed he had spoken with founders of Bitcoin who were, in his words, very excited. He was also corresponding with MIT's Joichi Ito about arranging meetings with key figures in Bitcoin's development, including Adam Black, the computer scientist whose work was directly cited in Satoshi Nakamoto's original Bitcoin white paper. Was Epstein Satoshi? No. There's zero technical evidence for that. But was he financially entangled with Bitcoin's institutional ecosystem during its most vulnerable and formative period? The documents say yes, and the implications of that. A convicted child sex offender helping to fund and shape the infrastructure of a currency now worth trillions are genuinely disturbing.
Another person who appears repeatedly in Epstein's emails is Reid Hoffman, a tech entrepreneur from California who in the year 2000 became the senior VP of business development at PayPal, a position that would make him a millionaire after the company was sold to eBay a few years later. But then, along with other PayPal founders and employees, he became part of the PayPal Mafia, an informal group of former PayPal executives known for their own massive success after they sold PayPal to eBay. This network includes the founders of YouTube, Tesla, Palantir, Affirm, Yelp, as well as executives from Reddit, Sequoia Capital, Square, and more. In 2003, he would then co-found LinkedIn, and would grow it into becoming the world's biggest business-oriented social media platform, selling it in the end to Microsoft for over $25 billion. Today, Reid Hoffman sits on the board of directors at Microsoft, as well as having sat on the board at OpenAI for several years, among involvement in various other AI ventures, with a total net worth in the billions. He also happened to blatantly lie to the whole world about the nature of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. In 2019, after Epstein was first arrested, Hoffman went on record saying that he only ever met with him for the purpose of fundraising for the MIT Media Lab, where he had a position at the time. But it would turn out that that was not true, and he had in fact had many more meetings with Epstein up until less than a year before his arrest, as well as having visited his island for a weekend in the summer of 2014. In 2015, Hoffman wrote an email to Epstein after news of his involvement with Prince Andrew first hit the news, offering to help manage the negative press coverage online to cover up what they had been accused of. And the PayPal Mafia just keeps showing up in Epstein's inner circle. Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, and now even the company's founder himself, Peter Thiel, who also appears in the Epstein Files far more often than he ever admitted on his own. Peter Thiel, after founding and selling PayPal in the early 2000s, became a central figure in Silicon Valley, but not as an entrepreneur himself. Instead, he began a career in venture capital that would be considered by many a form of political investing. He would fund tech companies that disrupted traditional industries, building up a huge portfolio of companies like Airbnb, Uber, Stripe. He was even the first outside investor in Facebook, giving them $500,000 in exchange for 10% of the company in 2005. Meanwhile, he would advocate for libertarian politics on the side, giving big donations to figures like Ron Paul and more. But over the years, Peter Thiel's political perspectives shifted dramatically, generating skeptical media attention and a variety of questions around the nature of his influence ever since. At various times, Peter Thiel has advocated against women's rights to vote, publicly questioned the viability of democracy itself, called for a hyper-capitalist corporate takeover of world governments, and, most recently, delivered a series of lectures alleging that the biblical Antichrist is publicly emerging right now in the real world from the movement for environmental conservation. Perhaps most notably, though, the one exception to his career of mostly investing and advocating would be, of course, his second company, Palantir. Now worth over $300 billion, Palantir specializes in building intelligence tools for military and police use, and has been identified by many as essentially operating like a private surveillance state. And Peter Thiel appears in the Epstein Files over 2,000 times, with records showing various lunch events, meetings, and visits throughout the 2010s. And while Peter Thiel would say that his interactions with Epstein were purely a product of Epstein being a, quote, crazed networker, records that emerged later would tell a completely different story. Because by 2015, Peter Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein were literally doing business together. In 2015 and 2016, Epstein invested a total of $40 million in Valor Ventures.
Epstein made a lucrative investment in Valor Ventures, a fund co-founded by Peter Thiel. The fund, which focuses on early-stage financial companies, has returned an average of 15.5% per year over the last decade. Epstein's stake, acquired around 2015 or 2016, has since grown to be worth around $170 million, making it the largest remaining asset in his estate. The investment had not been publicly disclosed until recently, adding yet another layer of mystery to Epstein's financial dealings.
Around that same time, Epstein began pitching that Thiel's funds should invest in an Israeli software company called Carbine that was making emergency communication apps, and they would invest tens of millions of dollars. And in addition to that, the Epstein Files revealed that there would be dozens more meetings between Peter Thiel and Jeff Epstein, showing countless invitations and conversations over the years. And despite Peter Thiel diminishing his relationship with Epstein as inconsequential and transactional, they in fact stayed in contact all the way up until just a couple months before Epstein died. And then there's Jess Staley, who in the early 2010s worked as the CEO of investment banking at JP Morgan Chase. And it was at JP Morgan that he would manage the bank's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein himself, where the story goes that he would protect and advocate for Epstein as a client, despite colleagues pointing out multiple times over the years that Epstein should not be a client at the bank. Epstein's chief defender at the bank was Jess Staley, a top contender to one day succeed Jamie Dimon as chief executive. Bank officials for more than a decade were anxious about Epstein's prolific wire transfers and cash withdrawals. JP Morgan ultimately processed more than $1 billion in transactions for him and warned senior management about his suspicious activities. But on at least 4 occasions over 5 years, the bank's leaders overrode those objections and continued to serve Epstein. In 2023, JP Morgan would settle for $290 million after a group of almost 200 of Epstein's accusers served them with a lawsuit for having enabled Epstein's crimes knowingly for over 10 years. Attorney Mimi Lee stated in court that Epstein's entire business with JP Morgan and JP Morgan's entire business with Epstein was human trafficking. By the time it was made public that JP Morgan had essentially enabled Epstein's crimes for a decade, Staley had already gone on to work as the CEO of one of the largest banks in Europe. But his involvement was not completely over, as the release of new Epstein emails showed that Epstein wasn't just his client. He was Epstein's client as well. In 2010, Epstein emails someone about wanting to photograph them in a Snow White costume. Then, a month later, Staley writes, "That was fun. Say hi to Snow White." Epstein replies, "What character do you want next?" Staley says Beauty and the Beast. Separately, someone else emails Epstein to say the Snow White was fucked twice as soon as she put on her costume. Later on, during a civil case against him, a victim identified as Jane Doe 1 alleged that Staley personally observed her as a sex trafficking victim and used aggressive force in his sexual assault of her and told her that he had Epstein's permission to do whatever he wanted to her. Staley has still never been charged with anything. And even on top of all of this, just absolute horror, the files only continue, as we see that again the government turning a blind eye to Epstein in the years during and after the charges against him resulted in not just a continuation of his crimes, but in him beginning to build a far-reaching political and cultural agenda as well.
And David, tonight, for the first time, lawmakers were able to review the unredacted Jeffrey Epstein files at the Department of Justice. 2 lawmakers tonight saying they found more names that need to be released to the public.
On Friday, April 24th, 2009, Epstein, still in prison after his 2008 conviction of prostituting minors, emails a friend to say, "Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video." That email would be revealed to have been sent to none other than Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, CEO of a shipping company called DP World that handles over 70 million shipping containers annually, roughly 10% of shipping traffic in the entire world. His brother, Mohammed bin Sulayem, is president of the FIA, the governing body of Formula One car racing. Bin Sulayem also spent years on the board for the Sovereign Wealth Fund in the UAE and is a landowner in Dubai's Palm Islands. He's one of the most powerful and richest people in all of Dubai. But it goes, of course, even deeper than just emailing each other about torture videos. In 2016, the larger island neighboring Epstein's Little St. James, Great St. James, went up for sale, and Epstein, having already had his bids denied while trying to buy it in the past on account of being a sex offender, made a holding company in Sulayem's name to purchase the island for $22 million. Other emails between them involve sharing links to porn videos and discussing politics. At one point, Sulayem would email Epstein to tell him the Ukrainian and the Moldavian arrived. Big disappointment that the Moldavian is not as attractive as the picture. This is literal confirmation in writing from a first-hand, first-party involved person that Epstein was trafficking women to different powerful people around the world. Everything they said about Epstein was true. Here he is with a man who controls one of the biggest shipping companies in the world, one of the most powerful men in the Arab world, talking about torture porn while he's in prison, sending him prostitutes and getting him to help him buy more islands. Epstein was exactly who they said he was. He was doing horrific, disgusting shit with people who sit at the highest level of power and influence in the world. And the more you read, the worse and worse it gets. In 2014, someone writes to him, "Thank you for a fun night. Your littlest girl was a little naughty." After US congressmen were allowed to view unredacted Epstein files in a secure context, they would report back that many files that had been redacted were relating to crimes against 15, 14, 10, and even 9-year-old girls. They would also say that they had identified at least 6 men, one a high-ranking foreign government official, one a prominent public figure, who were all directly involved in Epstein's trafficking activities. There is now undeniable proof that Epstein was doing exactly what everyone suspected he was doing. He was running a ring of pedophilia with the richest people in the world.
Congressman Massey and I went to the Department of Justice to read the unredacted Epstein files. We spent about 2 hours there, and we learned that 70 to 80% of the files are still redacted. In fact, there were 6 wealthy, powerful men that the DOJ hid for no apparent reason. When Congressman Massey and I pointed this out to the Department of Justice, they acknowledged their mistake, and now they have revealed the identity of these 6 powerful men. These men are Salvatore Navora, Zorab Mikoladze, Leopig Leonor, Nicola Caputa, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, CEO of Dubai Ports World, and billionaire businessman Leslie Wexner, who was labeled as a co-conspirator by the FBI.
Remember when Kash Patel testified that there were no co-conspirators? No co-conspirators at all. This is Kash, in my opinion, committing perjury, a clear-cut case. Play this clip.
There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Now, my question is, why did it take Thomas Massey and me going to the Justice Department to get these 6 men's identities to become public? And if we found 6 men that they were hiding in 2 hours, imagine how many men they are covering up for in those 3 million files.
Other files in the Epstein library include an FBI document with a list of underage victims, acknowledgement that Epstein was in possession of 14.6 terabytes of what they called obscene material, and countless redactions filed under child sexual abuse material not scanned. But here's what gets me. Those emails, the torture video, the littlest girl, the age 11, these are the ones where they were talking casually, where they aren't hiding anything. But many more of the Epstein emails turn out to contain evidence of stuff that's far worse going on just below the surface. Something that, again, was before considered a nightmare too disgusting to even be possible.
What's galling for so many is that no one, other than Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, has been convicted for their role in the sex trafficking ring. But as the Epstein files show, the FBI has known for years who the alleged co-conspirators are. Confoundingly, they're protected, their names and faces redacted.
We're doing everything we can.
Attorney General Pam Bondi is under intense pressure to explain why there have been no investigations to prosecute or clear those who appear in the files.
The title of this one is Child Sex Trafficking. Co-conspirators, fully redacted.
Who are the co-conspirators on your hit list? Who should the authorities be going after?
From what I can see right now, it looks like Leslie Wexner. The FBI owes us an explanation for how they decided to no longer pursue him.
I hired a lady to be like the house manager who had run the U.S. Embassy in Rome, and she said, yeah, I know how to do this. And I said, well, why don't we keep inventories of stuff? And she said, well, yeah, I could do that. So she did that. That's kind of a puny example, but I wouldn't have had the idea. But then all the things were inventoried. That wasn't work for me or Jeffrey. It was just regularly done. Answer the question. Okay.
Billionaire Les Wexner was the mogul behind Victoria's Secret. and Epstein's cash cow until the 88-year-old had a falling out with a financial advisor, accusing him of embezzlement.
Well, I didn't know he was stealing till after we discovered that he was a crook.
At a recent congressional hearing, Wexner denied any knowledge of Epstein's crimes, but he stands accused of being his greatest enabler.
Did you ever witness Mr. Epstein sexually abuse young women or girls?
Absolutely not.
The role that Wexner played in Epstein's development into someone who could construct a huge international sex trafficking operation, it's really hard to overstate.
For Jeffrey Epstein's victims, so much hope is riding on the files, not just delivering accusations, but also justice. The fear is their hope is doomed.
There was nothing in there that allowed us to prosecute anybody.
The stance has been that it is unlikely that there will be further prosecutions leading from the Epstein file dump. What's your reaction to that?
It could make me cry that we're gonna just let these people get away with it because of who they are and the power that they have.
Take a look at some of these entities that Epstein controlled. Butterfly Trust, Epstein's Real Property, FT Real Estate Inc., Gratitude America Inc., JP Epstein Virgin Islands Foundations, Jeepers Inc., Mort Inc., the Telus Inc., Zora Development Corporation, among others. What are these entities is my question. I don't know what these entities are. Let me be very clear. But do these entities have documents? You can imagine that just one entity could potentially have 100,000 documents, 1 million documents. Again, I don't know what these entities are, zero clue. But we should be able to find that out.
Last year, the Biden administration allowed our investigators to look at portions of the file. We did that at the Treasury building. Here is what it says. Treasury's Epstein file details, Mr. President, 4,725 wire transfers. Let me repeat that. 4,725 wire transfers, adding up to nearly $1.1 billion flowing in and out of just one of Mr. Epstein's bank accounts. If you ask me, that is more than 4,000 potential lines of investigation right there. Hundreds of millions more flowed through other accounts. That's even a lot more to investigate. The file shows that Mr. Epstein used multiple Russian banks, which are now under sanctions, to process payments related to sex trafficking.
This was right around the time that Epstein was being prosecuted. Of the 10 co-conspirators, 3 have been located in Florida and served grand jury subpoenas, 1 in Boston, 1 in New York, 1 in Connecticut. 4 of the 10 are outstanding with attempts having been made. 1 is a wealthy businessman in Ohio, a lead being sent to CV. The remaining 3 currently are out of pocket. The team, 8 SAs, TFOs, 2 AUSAs, assistant U.S. attorneys. This is the team of the federal prosecutors. They're flying tonight, tomorrow to various locations in Florida to interview approximately 25 victims. The 1-800 call FBI line is up and running. We have received approximately 45 calls, which we are in the process of vetting. All of those calls, after their vetting, all have memos. Where are those memos? The 25 victims referenced here, where are all of those witness statements? Where are those statements at all? The 10 co-conspirators, what investigations were done there? There are photos of the co-conspirators. There are photos. How do we know that? This email, August 19, 2019, Epstein co-conspirator pics. I'm just reading you the documents. I'm not going down a conspiratorial rabbit hole. Detective, NYPD, FBI, Child Exploitation, Human Trafficking Task Force. The attachment, co-conspirators_brief.docx. Where's that document? Where's the co-conspirator brief.docx? That's a document we want. And where are the pics? Co-conspirator pics. How about this document? Memos. Memo on co-conspirators we could potentially charge, the Monday after Epstein's death. Co-conspirators update memo, December. Co-conspirator prosecution memo April. Hasn't been discussed in 3 weeks since we sent it. Perjury, New Mexico memo will be another 30 pages right there.
Where are all the pictures? Where are all the videos? Where's all the talk of the fact that we know Epstein's houses were bugged to the high heavens, which means you have super powerful politicians, you have presidents, you have prime ministers, you have royalty, you have billionaires, you have celebrities on camera doing god-awful things with children.
Wexner's name was added back
within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed. He's listed as a co-conspirator.
This guy has Trump derangement syndrome.
Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal asking Epstein survivors in the audience to stand and offering Bondi the opportunity to apologize to them.
Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through?
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
Afterwards, several of those survivors sitting down with NBC's Hallie Jackson.
Show me your hands if you were satisfied with what you heard from the Attorney General today. Nobody.
The recent dump of files, I'm just kind of horrified by. And it's a kind of re-traumatization that in some ways, I mean, because, you know, the worst, the actual experiencing it is over, experiencing the abuse. But the fact that the very people who are meant to lead this country, who are meant to protect the innocent and the vulnerable and stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves, have completely re-traumatized us. It's like being raped by the Department of Justice.
You published their names, their identities, their images.
My addresses, my driver's license with my picture, my signature, my phone numbers, notes from the government that were, I was compelled to give testimony in the Maxwell trial, and therefore I was also compelled to give an honest, amount of information on my life and notes on everything personal that had ever happened to me, and all those were released. And I'm also having abusive messages and exploitative messages and threatening messages sent to me, things coming to my door. It's disgraceful.
Who blinks first, Pam Bondi or members of Congress?
Pam Bondi's testimony over the Jeffrey Epstein investigation will not be happening. The Department of Justice says Bondi will not appear before the House Oversight Committee because she's no longer the Attorney General.
The department, writing in a letter to lawmakers, Miss Bondi no longer holds that office. As a result, because Miss Bondi no longer can testify in her official capacity as Attorney General, the department's position is that the subpoena no longer obligates her to appear on April 14th.
The Trump regime is collapsing under the weight of their own lies. Everybody knows it. Everybody can see it.
The Epstein Files made it clear that his crimes were worse than most people imagined. It's worse than the government was willing to admit. The world allowed it to continue when it could have been stopped many times over, and that Epstein was not just a pedophile, but somehow more connected to the highest levels of global politics and economics than anyone ever thought. There are elected politicians walking out of classified briefings right now saying that they saw evidence of crimes against girls as young as 9. There are 14.6 terabytes of what the FBI called obscene material. There are dozens of folders labeled child sex abuse material not scanned. And it all sits in between Epstein rubbing elbows with the most powerful people alive. And all of this comes from the years of Epstein's life where he was supposedly in hiding, supposedly disgraced by his crimes. All this stuff where Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Peter Thiel are meeting up with him, a former prime minister of Israel stayed at his apartment 50 times, helped him invest in companies, Saudi billionaires are helping him buy islands. This was while he was in exile. Barack Obama's White House legal counsel was flying on his planes, sending him kissy emojis, calling him up to ask for gifts of handbags and shoes. The man who is today the United States Secretary of Commerce right now lied under oath about doing business with Epstein and vacationing on his island with his wife and kids. Then there's the tech billionaires. Almost every person who's now considered one of America's oligarchs, our country's 100 billionaires who wield an outsized influence over politics, they were meeting with Epstein for years while he was supposedly living shamefully in the shadows.
Over 1,000 victims were identified. Millions of documents were released, and yet somehow, in 6 years of investigation, not a single person beyond Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted. Not one. Hundreds of powerful men visited that island, flew on those planes, appeared in those photographs. And the investigative machinery of the most powerful nation on earth produced exactly one conviction of an associate and a memo that said there was nothing more to see?
And still, after all of this, after everything we now know, 70 to 80% of the files are still redacted, while the US government says there is no more story to tell and that Epstein was never running any kind of organized trafficking operation to begin with. Meanwhile, civil suits against his clients are settled left and right, with dozens of powerful people going into hiding after the Epstein Files revealed their crimes against humanity. It is genuinely no wonder that people have started to think Epstein was a spy, that maybe he worked for Mossad or the CIA. The way our government reacts to him today, refusing to prosecute any of his confirmed accomplices, refusing to admit anything happened at all, not only have they declared there will be no more charges, no more files, no more indictments, at the same time, they also haven't even investigated the site of his massive ranch in New Mexico, where he mysteriously won an $80 million lottery ticket, grew plants that are known for being used to incapacitate sexual assault victims, and hosted New Mexico's governor himself as a house guest. The institutions that are supposedly built to protect us, the Department of Justice, the FBI, the courts, Congress, are not just failing to solve this case, they are actively choosing not to. And who else would they do that for besides someone who is benefiting from them? Under what other circumstances would Epstein's mysterious death be covered up? Because if Epstein were just an asset for Democrats or just Republicans or Russians, there would be a massive reward out there for whoever could expose what really happened. But there has been no such expose. So who else could be protecting the truth about Epstein but the deep state itself?
The conspiracy theories surrounding Jeffrey Epstein are unlikely to fade. If anything, they've likely become a permanent feature of the overall scandal, filling the void left by unanswered questions and institutional failures.
Tech billionaires, Oscar-winning filmmakers, people whose names we know, people whose work we're familiar with and consume, and all of them tell the same story. We didn't know, we weren't close, and when we did find out, we cut ties immediately. But all of them are lying through their teeth. And so the question that just keeps coming back is simple. What the hell was in it for them? Why would these people stand alongside someone who was such a huge risk? And why are they lying about it now? And that tells you not just something about Epstein, but about what these people are. These people who run our companies, shape our politics, and build the technology and culture we consume every day. Not only did he get away with crimes against humanity under everyone's noses for decades, but before he could even be forced to answer for what he had done, he mysteriously died while he was sitting in a maximum security prison wing. It looked a little too convenient. It looked a little too much like someone wanted the truth to die with him. And that's why it didn't. And then slowly, very slowly, evidence came out and it showed us that the truth was even worse than we had suspected. At first, it was small, little drawings, notes, inside jokes, small packets of information showing that, hey, Epstein wasn't just really good at hiding being a pedophile, everyone around him knew it and they didn't care. And then finally, after years of pressure, 3 million documents from Epstein's computers were released and revealed that it wasn't the case that Epstein ever got away with anything. In reality, he didn't just get away with the crimes he had committed in the first place. He was allowed to keep going and make friends with the world billionaires, politicians, and thinkers all at the same time.
For a lot of Americans, this felt like one of the first moments where they looked at the system and thought, wait, is everything as solid as we think it is? And whether you believe the official ruling or if you question it, the reason this case won't go away is because it feels unresolved. Coincidence after coincidence after coincidence. At some point, people stop calling it coincidence or random and they just start calling it strange, because it is strange. And that doesn't mean every theory online is correct, but it does mean the public isn't crazy for asking questions.
Do you think that it's at all possible that all of these deaths over the last few decades related to Epstein's crimes were just genuine coincidences, tragedies, and natural and normal ends? Or do you feel like something more suspicious has been going on to prevent the truth from coming out?
It's not fiction anymore. If anything, the reality appears like it's probably far worse. In Eyes Wide Shut, the movie shows one night in one mansion with one group of people, but the Epstein archives show us a system spanning decades, continents, and virtually every pillar of power in the Western world. At the same time, we see how it was operating in plain sight. Because these aren't random rich people we're talking about. These are the people who decide what technology we use, what companies we work for, what laws get passed, what wars we fight, what information we see and what we don't see. A billionaire gets a slap on the wrist for something that would put you away for decades. Politicians lie on camera and nothing happens. A corporation poisons a river and they pay a fine that amounts to a Chipotle bowl out of their bank account. And each time, we're told it's an exception, that the system isn't perfect, but it works. And then Jeffrey Epstein happens, and it shows us the clearest, most undeniable proof that this story that a bunch of crazy people won't shut up about is actually true. There is a level of power where none of the rules apply, where you can do the most evil, depraved, unforgivable things imaginable to the most vulnerable, innocent people on Earth, and nothing will happen. Not because the system failed, but because the system worked. It did exactly what it was designed to do. Protect the people at the top. And it feels like a violation of our rights as people to live in a world where our freedom and liberty are protected. And when people like Epstein are allowed to take people's freedom and liberty away and torture them and then get away with it, this is a crime against humanity. And that's why people care. That's why this case doesn't go away. Not because we're fascinated by Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes. He's dead. People care because of what it means for the rest of the world. People care because there are people out there right now today who are still rich beyond measure, still living like kings, free and powerful, who are passing around little girls as young as 9 years old like they were objects, and there has been no justice. I can refuse to let the story die. I can say, look at what they did, look at who knew, look at who's still walking free, and look at the world we actually live in. They want us to forget. It's our job to make sure that never happens.
After years of being kept apart, we're standing together.
Standing together.
Because this girl deserves the truth.
Because she deserves the truth.
Because we all deserve the truth.